So today I'm discussing the audio of the welfare check that was played during court during Detective Stubbs' testimony during Chad Daybell's preliminary hearing. I just want to break this down and go over some of the parts that stuck out to me. So on this, we start right off with the detectives talking to Lori, and they ask her, "Are you alone?" And she says, "No, my brother's here." And she's very chipper and she's very upbeat, and she's like, "Oh, I talked to a guy on the phone that said, that he wanted to do a welfare check on JJ," and the cops butt in and they're like, "Well, yes, and speaking of, where's JJ?" And just right off the bat, she's like, "He's in Arizona with one of my friends." Very easily says this. And she says, "He's with my friend Melanie. My son has autism." And this is just another one of those things that I think she throws out there to make a point of people knowing it, whether she's looking for a sorrow card or what, I don't know. But that part is completely irrelevant at this point. The main concern is, where's JJ? Now, she has this very playing it cool tone on her voice. We can hear that the officers have stepped inside. And we hear when the detectives say, "Yeah, we got a bad vibe when we were here earlier." And immediately Lori butts in and takes over the conversation. And I think that this tactic is one of control and a very manipulative tactic, because it makes it look like she's confident. It makes it look like she is in control of everything. And essentially, I believe that she is trying to control everything by these conversational tactics. And she starts right off with, "You know what? Yeah, things have been weird. I've had to move around a lot." And she says, "My brother is here. He's like my protector." And this is one of those instances that we see these small kernels of truth seep out between the lines. Because if we look at it, I think Alex is her protector. Clearly, he's done some bad things for her. I think that she didn't have to twist his arm too bad to convince him of much of anything, and he was going to do it. He was going to protect her from these perceived evils. Now, we also hear her talking about how, "Oh, my husband was trying to do away with me over this big life insurance policy that was on my head." And she's like, "So yeah, a lot's been going on this year." Again, this tactic of not denying anything that the cops said right away, but going with it and being like, "Yeah, you know what? There is a bad vibe here. This is going on." Boom, 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 boom. She has taken control of that energy. And what she doesn't know, though, is that they already know a bunch of stuff. Now, she also talks about, "Oh, we're going to have to move back to Arizona to put JJ in particular schools." And she makes sure to throw these details out there. Again, JJ is like an anchor through this conversation, because obviously, number one, it's about JJ, but she's bringing all this stuff in to make herself look like this, overly concerned parent with his best interest at hand, and we clearly know that is not the case. Another aspect that we see come out is she talks about the person who made the phone call. She says, "That's my sister-in-law." Now, she explains the whole adoption situation, and during this, she has to throw out that Kay's son is a drug addict and JJ was taken away from them. And she's like, "You know what? Kay and Larry wanted her and Charles to adopt JJ." And during this time, again, you can see the camera panning over to Kay and Larry, and she is just shaking her head like, "I cannot believe what I'm hearing." And again, I think so many of us watching this were feeling that, because the lies that come out of Lori's mouth, especially now that we've pieced together the puzzle, are totally shocking. And Lori says, "Look, ever since Charles past, that Kay has been about trying to fight her for JJ, and that Kay has been really horrible to her." But then we start to hear Lori's true concern, her true intentions, when she begins to talk about the life insurance policy, because a lot of this is all it comes back to. She goes on this rant, "My husband of 15 years, I raised these 5 kids together. He switched his life insurance policy." Well, one of the most credible people that was close to Lori that has talked to her in April said, "You know what? Lori wasn't killing herself raising these kids. She had help doing all this." So this whole thing that Lori is trying to paint of, "Oh my gosh, I, gave up my golden years to raise these children and did all this," it's just not the case, but I'm sure in her world it is. And she continues to reiterate, "Look, Kay got the $1 million when Charles passed. It left me with nothing to raise these kids." So you can just see how she's completely aligning Kay to be this evil person that has just left Lori and the children out to starve on the streets. Really, what I think is going on is Lori is upset because the entire plot that she had against Charles was for nothing, and now all this trouble is going on over it. Now, we also know that Lori was the one going in and trying to change Charles's password to these insurance accounts, and that he figured this out along the way. So again, we see that the stuff she's trying to blame Kay for, it's like, no, Kay didn't do that. Charles initiated this because of Lori's actions, because of what she she was doing. And it's another prime example where we just don't see anyone in this group able, willing, or considering the fact that their actions have consequences, and there has to be some accountability for that. And Lori says, you know what, I know Kay's trying to sue me for JJ, and guess what, you know what, she can, because she has everything and we have nothing. You know, and again, just the level of victimhood coming out, I am sure these detectives were just like, whoa, there's a lot going on here. It's clear that all Lori is doing is trying to claim JJ as her own, or, you know, this pawn to make her look good, because it's a thing to get back at Kay. And I think that here in this conversation we can start to see how JJ was probably nothing but a representation of the rage that she had toward Kay and this money. And she says, you know what, all Kay wants to do is cause me trouble, and so yeah, we don't let her know where we're at or where the kids are at. And she even raises her voice during this like she's really authentically upset, and she might be, you know, but again, it's just shocking to hear her get this upset. And I really think what she's upset over is because, you know, JJ was still with her, you know, prior to this, obviously. You know, she didn't get that money. JJ was still there. Now he's not, but he's still causing her issues in her mind. You know, now she is being questioned. Her plan didn't go as it was, and it is beginning to become unraveled. She is being exposed. Now they ask her, how long have you been here? And she's like, we got here in September. And she says it's been a nightmare, and that they're going to have to go back to Arizona to put JJ back in a school there because the ones there just aren't cutting it. One of the truly upsetting parts about that, of course, is that we all know where JJ was at this point. So this whole time she's trying to spin this whole tale about, you know, oh, I'm gonna have to take him back to a school and da-da-da-da-da. And the lies feel so intricate, you know, but the whole time it's like, oh my goodness, no, that was never gonna happen. Now Lori continues her campaign against Kay, and she's like, you know, she's contacted me with dates and I haven't seen him since this date and da-da-da-da-da. You know, it's like she's documenting, like doing like lawyer stuff. And for a good reason. Thank goodness Kay was doing this. And we see Kay in the background shaking her head. Yep, you are straight on that one. Now Lori says, it's awful. I feel like I'm being tracked all the time. And I'm just like, yeah, because you are. And you deserve it. Now, another really interesting part to this that I had to almost laugh because I was like, the audacity of this woman, is they start questioning her about the two guys that they ran into earlier. She, you know, they're like, look, who is that? And she's like, my brother and his friend. Okay. And that's when we hear the detective say, Daybell, you know, isn't he an author? And Lori's very proud of this. Yes, he is. And then they say, didn't his wife recently pass? And she goes silent. And again, I always like to say, you can learn a lot from someone by what they're not saying and in between the lines. And Lori says just as much in her silence and in between the lines as she does when she's lying. Now she goes on to say, look, I'm going to be moving in, you know, in with my friend Melanie, and nothing's going to be on my name so I can hide out. And, you know, I mean, I don't care which way you spin it. This sounds completely shady, and I'm sure these detectives, like, knew this. And she even says, that's why I'm here with my brother. So, I mean, literally she is spinning this whole thing. Now, of course, the whole time her phone's going off and doing this and doing that, I'm sure it was Chad. So this comes to an end. They leave, you know, they do all this, and then we hear them coming back again. You know, and the detectives are talking to each other because they couldn't get a hold of Melanie Gibb, and they're going to have Lori try to call her. You know, now we already know what's been going on. She's calling and Chad's calling, oh, the detectives are going to call you, don't answer the phone, and don't do this, and da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, all these things are taking place because we can see the whole picture. And again, this is where I look at it like, I really don't know, circumstantially speaking even, how they would try and get out of this, because I'm just like, it's so obvious that y'all are covering this up. You know, I know that a lot of things are out there, like would an insanity defense work and this, that, and the other, and I'm just like, there's so much proof of covering up. You know, even if we don't have proof of other things, I just don't see how they could get out of this. Now, once the detectives go back, and you know she was shaking in those knockoff boots at this point, you know, and they're like, look, we want you to call Melanie. And right off she's like, oh no, they're at Frozen 2. They're at Frozen 2. Yep, that's where they're at. And again, she spits these lies out so naturally and quick. I'm just like, she is good. Now, we also know later on that we'll learn from Melanie, from her own words, that she eventually does tell the police when they finally get a hold of her, yeah, JJ was with me, but then he was back with Lori. So again, you're just piecing all these stories together from each of these members, and it doesn't look good. You know, now Chad's reaction during this testimony was just, you know, there was really really nothing going on with him. He just had that lifeless, toady type look going on that he is becoming so synonymous with. Now, if you want to hear some more of my commentary on this case and others like it, just click the videos that are going to pop up. I appreciate you watching. I'll talk to you soon.